Welcome to Oregon Voters Digest, the program that brings forward the social and political issues that are important to people living here in the Pacific Northwest. And now, your host, Bruce Broussard.
Hey, Bruce Broussard here, Oregon Voters Digest. Boy, I tell you, we have a show for you today. We really have a show for you today. And this past week was awesome. A lot of things were happening. And the first one, right off the top, one that hits different right off the bat, is the fact that the president that tweeted not too long ago that he and his wife had the virus, if you will. They were tested positive. Let's put it that way. And there's some things about he's all on the tube right now. If you go to CNN or Fox, you'll get the whole lay of the land aspect of it. But anyway, I just want to lay that out to you, and naturally, we would hope that both he and his wife will get to we'll get out of this situation and really come out of this thing in a very positive way. That they will be healed one way or the other. I understand he's at Walter Reed. That's the military hospital aspect of it, and I guess the White House will be at Walter Reed for a few days, and that's where he will be. But anyway, we're sending out a prayer to him, and that hopefully he'll be and his wife both will get better and get well, and he will test negative in the next 2 or 3 days for this deal, because we do have a very, very important race for president. And he has been highlighted, as you know, from the day that he filed for office. He's been highlighted as the president, besides taking on all issues, whether it be negative or positive, all issues up to date. So it's very, very important that he's going to be there, and maybe you might not be able to see him in person. Some of the pictures that he normally goes out to, but in all, we still have a campaign going. We still have a campaign problem. Well, now, with that, what we're going to be talking about, that we're going to bring it home here in the Portland metropolitan area. Well, all sorts of things that were happening with us this past week. We had the demonstrations, the normal demonstration downtown, but most of we had unorganized demonstrations at 3 of the parks here locally during the daylight hours. I thought was interesting, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. And basically, the person who's going to be on with me today, is Jack Kerfoot. You know Jack. Jack basically ran for city commissioner. He ran for the Nick Fish seat, and he did quite a job. And as you know, Dan Ryan was the one that ultimately ended up with that particular seat. Loretta ran, and for those of you that weren't keeping up with the politics, like a lot of other folks haven't, if you will. Anyway, Dan Ryan is on board now. That's there. And so like I said, we got Jack. And then another person we're going to have would be Fred Stewart. You've seen Fred Stewart on. Fred has spent quite a bit of time on the whole issue of police. But there were going to be some things we were going to talk about, the whole issue of police and reform and whatever. And so Fred was going to be on to give us some background on that. And he's a very active person in the community, and hopefully he'll give us some feedback on what he thought about the whole Saturday issue and whatever. So that's going to be our show. And so with that, it look like Fred is on. He's a realtor, so he got to make sure he gets out there and sell a house or two. That's the first thing I jump on him on. I say, what has he done today? Because he's got to eat, folks. We're live. Fred, welcome aboard, buddy. Welcome aboard. Appreciate you coming on. I know you've been busy, and thanks for. And by the way, I want you to know that I called him at the last minute. And I said, Fred, I need you. You got to come on the show. There's some things that we need to talk. And police is huge in that arena. So welcome aboard. Thank you very much. And we're now on the show, guys. and I don't know if you missed the first part, Fred. We're just kind of going with a little quickie overview about the president, and we talked about that and wished him well, if you will, he and his wife. And we talked about the fact we got a busy last week aspect of it, and we talked about the protesting during the daylight hours. After there were 3 different protesting, one with the Proud Boys down at Delta Park, and the Delta Park, Alberta Park, and whatever, and it was at Ainsworth. Yeah, got Ainsworth piece. We had the Antifa, and then we had the Black Lives Matter, and then we had that piece aspect of it. We talked about a little bit about that and whatever. Other than that, you pretty well know what's going on. So why don't we just, in all due respect, why don't we just start off with you, and can you give us your read in terms of what did you think about the protesting this past Saturday, how it happened?
I just think the protesting is over with now. There's no benefit. I mean, the people who are protesting obviously feel that it's going to help Sarah become mayor. I think they're wrong. I think every time they go out, what they're doing is helping, Ted Wheeler win. But, they're young people. They're learning. Everybody has to learn. Everybody has to go down their own journey. I think every time they go out and protest, they're actually running against the best interests of Sarah. So.
Good. Well, that's a good point. In fact, there's a couple of questions on that. Now, if you notice of late, Ted pumped in $150,000 of his money. I say that it came from the corporate community, but anyway, he put $150,000. We've already been going over this campaign finance thing about being, limiting it, if you will, what's it, 500, 1,000, whatever, limited, and so now he should have known better. That was one major piece.
Bruce, they'll never make it unconstitutional in the United States to loan yourself your own money to run for office. That'll never happen. I mean, Bud Clark, when he decided to run for city council in March of 1984, the first thing he did was loan his campaign $50,000 in 1984 when the average home in Portland, Oregon was only selling for $40,000. You get my meaning? You can do, if you're rich, you got an edge. And we'll never constitutionally be able to get rid of that. So people can sit around and bellyache all they want, but that's just how it is. I mean, what's next? You're going to be criticized for giving your kid a hug, paying for your kid to go to college? Are you a bad person for letting your kid live in your home while they go to college? Everybody's got their advantages economically, and some got their disadvantages.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to shift it over to Jack right now.
Okay.
But at the same time, we'll come back to you by basically throwing this in while Dan, hopefully Jack will answer that deal. I remember now, the people were the one that basically voted on this issue and limited. They are the voters. So that's the only reason why I'm throwing that in. But be prepared. We'll see what Jack says about that. And he'll include that piece. Then we'll come back to you and see what you think about that. Jack.
Yep.
Welcome aboard. What's up, Jack?
First of all, relative to self-funding, the Supreme Court ruled in 1978 that was legal, and you could not put restrictions on self-funding using your own personal funds. Now, at the same time, the restrictions that were passed that were actually upheld by the state was restrictions on corporate contributions, business contributions to the individual campaign. That's what Ted has been fined for before. But legally, he is not breaking the law if he uses his own money to fund his campaign. Now, relative to the demonstrations, I would say the fact that they held it during the daylight hours, and each of those demonstrations were very, I would say, focused on specific issues, and there was really no violence. And actually, to be honest, given the situation with two very politically opposite parties or groups, I was impressed the way it was handled and the outcome of it. So my tip of my hat to both groups to mitigate the violence and to make sure no further destruction has happened in the city of Portland.
I think it's not that I disagree with you, Jack. I think Jack's right, but there's one thing. The fart is in the air. You understand what I'm talking about? It doesn't matter how peaceful the protests are anymore. People are so done with it. So done. They don't care if it's violent or not anymore. They've done, that ship has sailed. Maybe 30 days ago, 60 days ago, if they had done this, maybe these protests, I think, would have more of an impact, positive impact. But, they busted the golden goose. And I think right now, people, when they see protests, when they hear there's a protest going on, they're done. They don't even go to the next page or think about the next issue. All they know is there's a protest.
Okay. Well, let me throw something else out to you guys and throw something out on the table. And that is, like you said, protesting was an issue. We became nationally known as a result of the protesting issue. And we had the downtown piece. And let me throw something out to you. My thought was when we had it, like you said, they had these peaceful protesting during the daylight hours aspect of it. And I would have thought that they would have announced to all of the parties that were in each of those entities that there was not going to be protesting that particular night in the Portland downtown, because we were holding protesting already in the various parties. And I thought that was kind of interesting. But guess what? We had the protesting downtown, and they're still being consistent about having protesting on and on. What do you think? Do you think that should have been they should have gone on and allowed the protesting like they did? Whatever, or if not, they cut it off and just say in the future maybe we might want to consider just doing protesting maybe on the weekend, because at these three elements, holding a protesting maybe once a month or twice a month, and make it during the daylight hours, and we will cease having any protesting at night in downtown Portland. What do you think, guys? I'm just on the let's go with Jack this time, and then you can feed off of him, Fred. Go on, Jack. What do you think?
Well, the interesting thing is I read in the Oregonian today that there is an initiative that's been put forward. Actually, one of the signers of the initiative is the president of the police union, where it would limit, and it would be on the 2022 ballot. And it would say that if you're going to protest up until 10 o'clock at night, you have to stay at least half a mile away from residences, and that there would be a restriction of protesting at night, at midnight from there on. So that's interesting, because their comment is right now there's no restrictions at all. And if someone were to file a formal paperwork to have a march or a demonstration, the fees are quite substantial. So they're trying to get that as a waiver. From that standpoint, what we're talking about is when we get a large group of people together, and the question is, how does it turn from a peaceful protest into a mob? It doesn't take much, unfortunately, unless you're very well organized or you've got incredibly gifted leaders like Martin Luther King. The demonstrations that King led and the NAACP led in the 60s and the 70s were extremely well organized, and everyone knew what they were doing, and they all had a very clear mission and objective. I think sometimes the protests that we've had in Portland haven't had that clarity, and certainly haven't had that organization.
Okay, Fred, what do you think? Daryl Turner they're proposing this deal down to legislature.
Man, I was so fired, Daryl. I mean, police union signing a policy. Are you kidding me? If I was mayor, I would be against it for tactics, just for that. I'd say the union head signed it. Oh, I'm against whatever that is. Gee whiz. I would so be pissed off at his wife for having sex with him. Oh my God, I would insult her. I would say, why are you bringing any type of pleasure to this guy? He's not doing Portland any pleasure. Jesus. He's an employee, and he's a major shop steward. He is not an elected official, and he's a cop. He is never going to win an elected office in Portland, Oregon. He is a cop for at least another 20 years. So he is a cop. He is going nowhere.
But
You know, Bruce, all I have to do is, it's like a red flag to the bull. If I throw out the name
Well,
of the
there's
police
Daryl
chief
Turner
person.
thinking that he's a politician, and then Robert Williams, who thinks he's a Portlander. A black Portlander. Don't get me going. Those are two. Yeah, right. That's like throwing out the bull. You know what I mean? Because they're both full of bull. Those black bulls are bullies. They're just full of bull. You know, and trust me, I remind them. And look, I don't have anything against Robert's family. I mean, I love his wife. His wife is awesome. And I've only met Daryl's family a little bit. I love them, but I tease them for having these guys in their family because they're both full of shit. Excuse my French.
Well, he'll be nice. He'll be nice.
Yeah, it seems like, but they're both full of it. I mean, that's why their eyes are brown. Well, mine is too, but theirs are darker brown than mine.
Well, Daryl, as you say, Daryl's going to run. Okay.
Daryl is not an elected official. He
But
does.
see, you think
He
about it
shouldn't
now,
be
Daryl may run
signing
for office. Now
anything.
he made it 2 years.
The only
Well, let's
thing he
think about
should
that. Do you
sign
think
is a union
he
contract
participated and put in
between the
March?
city of Portland and the Portland police. He
Yeah.
shouldn't be signing anything.
Okay, let's talk about let's talk a little bit about the protesting and the makeup bill. When you think about it, we had the Parks Commissioner, and you know that's who am I thinking about? That's Amanda Fritz's piece. You know, she had to be at the table when they organized this thing. Okay, and then there was Udaly. Udaly, remember her, Commissioner Udaly? She was at there because she had signs, if you will, was it the electrical signs down there talking about this, that, orderly and stuff like that. I thought that was kind of an interesting piece. But then where was Joanne on this issue? Well, the governor was involved in this bill, and then the federalization of the police, both state police, state police, the sheriff department, and also Portland police. What do you think about that, Fred? Weren't they all in there working together? Where was Joanne on this deal, by the way? Where was she? Did she accept the federalization of the troops?
She has no choice.
Huh?
She has no choice. She's not stupid like Ted. What was she going to do? Go out and start arguing against the president again and calling him out? I mean, she's just a city commissioner. She's powerful here in Portland. She's got a lot of influence in Oregon. But once you leave these borders, like Ted's learning, you're kind of nothing. So, no, I like kind of what Joanne did by, she did good. She's not going to take on the president.
Okay, but then at the same time, though, check this out, Fred. Tell me about this piece. She just took her endorsement of Ted Wheeler away.
I think endorsements like that are irrelevant. I mean, I'm not telling people not to do it or whatever, but in my history of looking at how elections have gone here in Portland, very rarely do endorsements matter that much. I mean, I was just telling a friend of mine the other day, I said,
hey, Fred, another piece, okay? Well, let's throw this out. Let me throw this one out there. I mean, she wrote sort of an obituary for the new chief. She wanted to get rid of him. She said, I'm getting rid of him. Hey, no, she put out this piece. I saw it on Facebook. I mean, she just laid it out. She said, oh, no, he's not going to be the chief. If he wants to apply, we're going to go out and do a search for a new chief, countrywide, so to speak, and he's out. I mean, wait, if
I was him, I wouldn't worry until he has a reason to worry from Ted, because Joanne ain't nothing to him. He only answers to the mayor. Now, if he feels the mayor agrees with her, then that's something to worry about. But if he doesn't feel the mayor agrees with her, she's nothing. She's just a city commissioner. You know what I mean? He could literally tell Joanne, there's a spot on my big black behind. You can come over here and cuddle with it.
Well, be nice.
Well, no, I'm just saying. No, the only person he needs to worry about is Ted. And we don't know what conversations he's had with Ted. You know what I'm talking about? This is what I was telling you guys. It's complicated for anybody but the mayor to be the police commissioner. Because even if Joanne was police commissioner, that value is still there. At the end of the day, the only person that can fire a police chief under our charter is the mayor. So as long as the mayor is happy, and he could be, he doesn't care what Joanne says. I mean, Joanne may be going out there because she's an activist trying to curry public support because, that's very sexy and attractive. But the bottom line is these decisions like that are made in a very small room. You know what I'm talking about? With very few people in it. Mm-hmm. And it comes down to, what does Ted think? And if Ted and him, the new police chief, are feeling that what the decisions they're making and what's going on is the way it needs to go, if Ted's happy, he ain't got nothing to worry about with Joanne. Not one thing.
Let me get Jack involved in this piece, because one of the things that happened just recently was that Joanne basically put enough pressure. Excuse me, friend. Wait a minute. Let's get Jack in.
It's not that I want to get Jack. I just want to get this in before Jack talks. The thing I point out about the city about our charter only giving the mayor the power to fire the chief, that's something I feel Portlanders should consider changing. I'm just talking about how it is. I'm not saying I like it. Okay. I'm just saying that's how it is.
All right. Sounds good. All right. So Jack, let's talk about this. And there was another little inference piece aspect of it. It has been said that she was sitting at the table when they organized this whole issue of protesting, daylight protesting this past weekend. But she definitely didn't like the idea allowing the gas situation to come back to the table. The whole issue was, yeah, that was huge. And so consequently, after this thing has happened, I think she went back to the table and said, no way. And she basically said to Ted, you better pull this stuff right now. And he did just that. That was in the press. He basically said, well, look, I do not want the federal government to basically, I want them to take off the so-called the federalization of the troops, said that to the president. She said that. And then all of a sudden she came out with all these other things, if you will. So, Jack, what do you think about that?
What I think we have is a big bowl of gumbo. And as you know, you're from Louisiana, there are a lot of ingredients in gumbo. And I think what we have is a lot of ingredients going on right now. It's a lot more than Black Lives Matter. It's about politics. She's basically given a vote of no confidence to Ted Wheeler, although she said, I'm not endorsing him, but she still maintained her endorsement of Commissioner Udaley, which is obviously, up to me, a vote of no confidence for the mayor. So clearly we have a lot of politics going on here from that standpoint. As far as doing a search for the chief of police, that's something, in my opinion, that you may have that discussion with the mayor and the other city council members, but that's not something you put in the press or you put on Facebook or any sort of media whatsoever. That shows him a complete lack of disrespect, which I don't feel is appropriate. I think it's time that we also
agree.
Step back and show respect to everyone, even if we don't agree with their position or we believe there's a different way to go. So from that standpoint, I think that we've got a lot of politics here. I almost wonder if she's positioning herself to run for mayor in 2022. I don't know, or 2024. So a lot of politics here, a lot of ingredients in that gumbo, and I'm not sure what it's going to taste like, but I know it's got a lot of stuff in it.
Okay.
Well, I agree with you, Jack. I mean, that's a good analogy about the jumbo and everything. It's a good analogy. And the problem is, while all this jumbo is going on, and maybe it's because it's election season, you notice no solutions are being discussed at all. And both Joanne and everybody else is showing their insecurity. I mean, only an insecure leader on an issue would act the way Joanne is right now. So it makes a guy like me curious, what the heck is going on behind closed doors? You know what I'm talking about? Because she's showing a lot of insecurity. She's showing, she's got issues. I don't know what they are. I'm not saying I even know what they are, but I know they're there. It's one of those things. And it's like Jack said, it's a bunch of jumbo, a lot of politics going on. And I think everybody, to a degree, is insecure right now for different reasons. We have nobody in city council that has a vision or a confident path for the city to go right now. And maybe, hopefully, that'll change after the election, when Carmen Rubio is on and, Dan is fully, on board and not just kind of like, patched in, because nobody's talking about Dan Ryan at all, and he's a city commissioner already. So, we'll see what happens after the election, certainly after January 1st. Let's see what Joanne's like there. Right now, I'm going to give her a pass, until, let's say, January 1st. This is her first election cycle after she got on, so.
Well, let me ask you, Fred. Let me ask you this point. Now, you've said a couple of things about Udaley in regards to the whole issue of race and who she is and what kind of character, how she identifies with that particular arena. I can spend a little time on that. But at the same time, Joanne endorsed her. Artisan endorsed her.
Black people make mistakes. We make mistakes with racism. We make mistakes all the time. I have no doubt that within the next, I won't tell you how long, there will be things that will come out here in the media where Joanne and everybody black who supports Udaley will regret it.
Okay.
Guaranteed. Okay. It's coming. Okay. But, right now they don't know. And I hope they don't. I mean, that would be a great story when this other stuff comes out. It'd be great for some smart journalists to find out what these black folks did know. You know what I mean? That would be a good story. Maybe too hot for them to handle. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, you going to tell us today?
No, I can't
are you
tell
gonna
you.
share it? Come on, Fred.
All I can do is tease you with hinting. All I can say is
Oh, Fred, don't tease me, buddy. Come on. Give it
it's
to us.
not
Come on.
good. I will tell you it's not
What was it?
good.
What was it? Give me a little sidebar. Give me a
I will
sidebar.
say this.
What
All I can say is it's
what is
not good.
it? Not good?
I
What's the
would say
definition
if
of
you're
good?
black and in politics,
Oh.
it's not a good idea to publicly endorse you daily. It's going to have long-term historical ramifications. But they should do what they want. I mean, hey, if they want to endorse her, go ahead.
Well, Fred, you're interrupting with the fact she needs 3 votes, to continue controlling, if you will.
Hey, we don't know after January 1st if your daily is going to be a vote. I mean, your daily may not have a vote after January 1st.
You mean to tell me your daily is not going to be there? I mean,
We'll see.
Huh?
We'll see.
Interesting. Well, wow. Well, look here. I'll tell you what. Guys, we're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to give you, Fred, the opportunity to think about that sidebar I was talking about. So when we come on, we're going to have you on, and you're going to share it with us. Okay, good. So, folks, we'll be right back. We'll wait for the announcement from Big Fred. All right. Welcome back again to the Oregon Voters Digest. Boy, I tell you, we've been having quite a show today. It was so much this past weekend aspect of it. I mean, it just blows my mind, I mean, I got Jack Kerfoot on, and boy, I tell you, all of a sudden, who dumped in the door, in the front of the door? My buddy Fred, he was out there. I thought he was selling houses. He been looking at things, community involvement, and things of that nature. And I don't know what's on his mind, but we're going to find out today. And then I said to you before, I mean, I'm going to give Fred the opportunity to talk about some issues here within our community. That's whatever. He's got some things he wants to talk about. Okay, so why don't we start off with Fred? Fred, what was this thing you said you were gonna? There was something about. Are you on, Fred? I don't have Fred on yet. Is Fred on? Fred, are you there?
His mic went out.
Mike went out. Okay, let's see. Okay, why don't you go on and jump in right now while Steve's getting the mic on. Okay, Jack.
Well, Bruce, there have been many issues and been going on the past few days in Portland. And one of the interesting issues that didn't make front page news, but it is significant, is that a city business in downtown Portland, the Broussard Jewelers, this was on Channel 12 News and also on the Oregonian, has filed a suit against the city of Portland because it claims the city did not do enough to prepare for and protect their business during the riots on May 29th. Now, from what I recall reading in the newspaper, their store was broken into, looted, hundreds, if not many hundreds of thousands of dollars of good and merchandise was stolen, and not all of that, or a significant portion of that, was not covered by insurance. And their claim is that the city was not prepared and the city did not take appropriate action. Now, the interesting thing, of course, in law is if they were to win this lawsuit, it would set a very expensive precedent for the other businesses downtown to follow suit as well. We have to realize that there are many ramifications for the violence and destruction that have been going on downtown that the city is going to have to spend precious dollars on to renovate the city and get our city back up to speed and running. And now they're going to more than likely have to pay substantial fines and fees for litigation and more than likely settle lawsuits with claimants for inaction relative to the demonstrations and the rioting and the looting that was taking place.
Tell me something. Now, when did this robbery take place? Was that the first
It was May 29th.
And how many break-ins were we having during that time?
Well, there were quite a few, but this basically they went right for the store because it's a well-established, a long-standing jewelry store in downtown on Alder and Broadway. And they basically broke in, knocked in the windows, knocked in the doors. The people were there, were calling 911 for help. There were police in the area. They weren't able to respond because of the other things that were going on, and they were trying to balance priorities. So I'm certainly not putting the blame on the police, but it is one of the repercussions that could be a very expensive and very costly aspect of
Okay.
these
But
riots.
you're saying that the employees were in the store when they did that? They broke in and stuff?
The way the story is written, perhaps we should ask them to come on the show. The way the story was written, they knew that
Yeah.
the break-in was happening, and they did call during the break-in and during the looting.
Okay. Well, like I say, I'm just trying to be respectful because in most cases, is that, you would have thought that if there'd been three break-ins and this, that, and the other, and whatever, they should have taken all of that jewelry and stuff and put it in a safe or take it home or something because the thing was too crazy. I mean, everything was being broken in. But anyway, hey, that'd be a good idea. If you can get in touch with them, we'd like to help that case if in fact it's a fact that it happened to them. Because that's something that all the other folks should be doing the same thing. We should know. Got me? And again, in all due respect, that's why I'm saying we shouldn't have any protesting at night. People are a little reluctant about breaking in the day. I realize we have break-ins and whatever, but I tell you, this night stuff really bothers me. It really does. There's no safety for anyone, employees, and in fact, even some of the looters, because some of the people who were out there demonstrating had nothing to do with the looting, but they just wanted to be out there to look, if you will, and see. And people are getting hurt. And the same thing with police. People are all wearing masks. They're all wearing masks. I mean, you don't know who these people are, if you will. But in the daylight hours aspect of it, like last week, and then we had 3 major, supposedly, riots, if you will. Nothing happened. As far as they were very peaceful, and they left peacefully. It wasn't an all-night thing. It was a few hours, if you will. I mean, and if anything, we should have had all kinds of major rioting last week during daylight hours. We didn't. We didn't even stop traffic. In fact, Black Lives Matter had to deal with what it was, Irvington Park, something like that, and at the Irvington Park aspect of it. And the bottom line is that they had a ride along, and they had a number of cars riding. They didn't stop they didn't stop the traffic on the freeway or cause any major interior problems and whatever. I mean, it was just a beautiful piece, and they broke in a reasonable time. And then that's what I'm saying. I think we ought to consider just having protesting during daylight hours, and give the city its downtown corridor back to the city. Give it back to the people. Get it back to the people. So that's why I'm having some concern with the fact that no one is talking about that particular issue. We've got the example. We got a good positive example that the bottom line, it can be done orderly. And the other law enforcement folks were all involved in the process. The commissioners were involved in the process. The state was involved in the process. I mean, what an opportunity for us to go on and do a piece where we can maybe just do them on Saturdays. See, and then there's still enough daylight hours. With the way things happened this past weekend, some of the entities broke up at 1 or 2 o'clock. They got there in the morning, they did what they had to do, and people still had enough time to go to the parks. So I'm just throwing that out to you, and I think that hopefully. And by the way, if you've seen the show, you're seeing the show aspect of it. Think about it. Talk to your neighbors about it. Because remember, this is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. We've elected these people. They're employees of ours. They're employees of you. You are the employee. They're not basically sitting at the top. I mean, the people tend to get there and think that they run the whole show. They don't run the whole show. We are the show. They do as they're told. And that's one thing we tend to forget when we're voting. We've got to vote. You got control. You just need to know how to use it. That's all. You can knock on your neighbor's block, and then educate them about what's going on. I mean, here we've got a mayor running for office, and 19 people ran against him the first time, and 19 people ran against him the second time. And luckily, in all due respect, they said, no, you can't get the majority of the vote. And now he's running against one of the people that ran against him. So as far as I'm concerned, he's not the mayor. He should just give it up. Here he is. I mean, we talked about the whole issue of campaign finance reform. That was the people saying that. People went out and knocked around doors, and they said, look, 80% of the people said, hey, we want campaign finance reform. And there was a reason for that. Because the little guy, people had something on their mind, couldn't run for office. And so he thought maybe this might be whatever. I mean, I'm just saying we need to go back and debate the issue. I know that I know Fred and other people that might have had some issues or concern. That's okay to share the opinion, but I think we need to revisit that issue. This is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, and we need to know that piece. Okay, I think we've got Fred on yet. If he isn't on yet, we got him on. I think we've got him on now. But anyway, let's go on to the second tier here aspect of it. I want to revisit this past weekend situation as far as with the Proud Boys. The Proud Boys, they were in the deal, and they were right up front with it. They were supporters of the president, Donald Trump aspect of it. But the guy there in that interview, I saw that I'm sort of quarantined in my house. I'm quarantined in my house. But the guy who was the lead guy, he was from Florida. He was Puerto Rican. He had dark skin. He was Puerto Rican, and he made a point in one of his interviews where he said that, look here, I think we ought to get together, Antifa and us. We need to sit down and talk. But they didn't spend enough time, spending a little bit more time talking it. What's the rationale? Why do we need to talk? And here's some of the problems. What about the Antifa group? They didn't interview that group to talk to them about the issues. It was a golden opportunity to get both factions at the table and out what the issues are. Guess what? Oregon Voters Digest brought it on. We interviewed Antifa, and we interviewed the Patriot Prayer. Okay? We interviewed those folks, and guess what? I did get them together. The Oregon Voters Digest did get them together. They're not personally right on the same table, but the bottom line, I interviewed Antifa, and I interviewed, what did I say, was it Jack? Not Jack, but anyway, the name will come up in one way or the other. But the bottom line is that, was that?
Joy.
Yeah, Joy Gibson with the Patriot Prayer. And if you want to check it out, you can go in the inventory. You can just go to Oregon Voters Digest and go back in the history, and you can see the interview that we had with him. Okay, and Joe Walsh from Antifa, and I interviewed him, and we talked. And at the end of those two interviews, Joe Walsh made the point about the fact, well, gee, I didn't realize that Joey was this way. So hey, we just need to communicate. These are Oregonians; they're citizens. And we all have a right. We talked about freedom of speech. Okay? But let's do something about it. We want our city back. We want our city back. We need to do anything and everything we can. It's so easy just to sit there and say, after you get through protesting, tearing up everything, and then you leave and you go back. Well, who's going to clean it up? Who's going to pay for it? So anyway, made my point. We got Fred back on now. Do me a favor. Why don't you give us an update? What do you think about the present presidential election aspect of it? What do you think about this? We've got two candidates now. We've got two candidates who are running for president of the United States. One is a sitting president, and we know who he is. Okay, Donald Trump. And then we've got a former vice president, Biden. Okay, Joe Biden, who's running aspect of it. So what do you think? They've started up now. This, that, and the other. What do you think? We got both of those individuals running for office. We got two. Now we can talk about the issues on the table, hopefully, and it doesn't become personal now. Talk about the issues that we're of concerns with. What do you think, Fred?
I am not saying that Trump is good. I'm not saying that, but I do not think Biden is a good enough candidate to beat Trump. I just don't see it. I wouldn't be offended if he won, but Biden's not going to be the guy to take out Trump. He's not. I mean, and we saw that in the last debate. I mean, the last debate was horrible. It was an absolute crap show. And one of the reasons why it was a crap show is not only did Chris Wallace not have control of it, Joe Biden is not up on the game enough to take advantage of the opportunities. I mean, I think 10 years ago, Joe Biden debating against Donald Trump, I think he would have wiped the floor with him that night. I mean, Trump just Trump was just so sloppy that day, just so sloppy. And through it all, Biden, what a lot of politicians in Biden's situation would have done would have been to go back to their message and would have, honed in on getting their message out while their opponent, is off to the races, as they say. And, he didn't do that. He didn't do that at all. It was like he didn't know how to do that. I mean, I guarantee you that last debate, Biden's people were screaming at the television, what they thought he should do. And he didn't do anything right. And I tell people, he's not the guy. He is not the guy. I ain't saying that there shouldn't be a guy to beat Trump, but he's not that guy. And he showed it in that first debate. I mean, you couldn't be more off the rails than Trump was last debate. You just, people, that's over the top. And look at Biden's performance. You know what I mean? He was just as much in the wilderness as a lot of us who are watching. And this guy wants to be the president. And it was hard for me to watch. It was really hard for me. Not so much the Trump part. I mean, I kind of expected Trump to be the way that he was. It's the Biden part. It was like watching an athlete, playing a few games too many. You know what I mean? It's like watching Muhammad Ali's last fight type of thing. You're like, oh man, I wish I hadn't done that. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what's going on with Biden.
Okay, let me share this with you and throw something out for you guys. Let's have a discussion. Not sort of taking sides, but let's think about it. When you think about, and this was just my observation, when he started running for office, I'm talking about the Trump aspect of it, it was a one-man show. He was controlling it all. He was also controlling the media. And he got to that point where he was actually controlling media. Unless he spoke, whatever. And he liked the idea of his name going out. And yeah, but let's think. Now, all of a sudden, he got the COVID-19. They're saying that he was tested positive. I'm saying there's a possibility he knew this before he got on the show. I'm just throwing it out to you. I'm just saying, not that he was just tested positive, because if he was just tested positive and he just didn't have a major piece, and that's what I'm saying, it's fine. But guess what? I think the guy was nervous. Now all of a sudden, they're taking him to Walter Reed. Now that's a serious piece now. So I'm just throwing that on the table and saying he wasn't ready. He had something else on his mind. Because that's normally not his style to get in there and do what he did. He just basically waits for the opportunity and then he interrupts. He was interrupting when he first started talking. I mean, he was hitting personal stuff. He was doing all kinds of stuff. I'm throwing that out to you. Jack, let's start off with Jack.
What I think is whether he was under the weather, President Trump was under the weather or not, what he did was use a tactic that threw Biden off very clearly. The question is, one of the most polished speakers I've heard in quite a few years was President Obama. And I was thinking the whole time how someone who is polished and as intelligent as President Obama would have handled these type of interruptions. President Obama always maintained a quiet dignity, and I have only the highest respect for him. I'm not sure how even he would have responded to the, let's say, non-standard debate tactics and combative tactics that President Trump used. I think the tactics that he used, he turned a debate into a reality TV show that personally I didn't like whatsoever. I wanted to hear the position on the issues. I wanted to hear about the economy. I wanted to hear plans for COVID-19, how we were as a country going to address this, how we were going to address our escalating debt, what our foreign policy would be. These are the issues that I wanted to hear two candidates talk about. And unfortunately, I really didn't hear that. I heard a interruption constantly by the president.
Jack, tell me this, and I'm going to get this right there in there. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot. You were running for office, and all of a sudden you had a debate. This was your last debate. And then the doctor gave you a call and said, hey man, you got COVID-19. You have to report to the doctor tomorrow morning. You guys have to do something about it. What would you do? Would you cancel the show?
I would have canceled the debate.
Okay,
Absolutely.
good. All right, good. Sounds good.
And we have a history of that in the past. Of course, it depends on how serious it is. Now, I understand the media is going to take this and it's going to spin it in a lot of different ways. How seriously ill is he? I mean, we have a history of President Woodrow Wilson that was had a major stroke and was incapacitated completely for several weeks, and that was kept from the media. That doesn't happen these days. There are no secrets anymore.
All right.
So,
Okay.
but I would have canceled it so we
Yes,
can
sir. Okay. Sounds good.
my position.
I know Fred is biting at the bit right now. Fred, what do you think? Well, what would you have done, Fred? What would you have done if they called you up and said, you got to go to Walter Reed? In fact, you got to go to Walter Reed right now. We got the ambulance right outside the door. What would you do? You'd say, hell no.
Walter Reed is the official hospital for the president. That's where the official doctors for the president, the nurses for the president are. And anytime the president is sick, they take control of his body, and that is federal law. He has no say-so. I mean, what Jack said is right. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with Jack at all. But the protocol is if he had had COVID before the debate, if the doctors felt he needed to go to the hospital, there's nothing Trump could have done to stop it.
You mean to tell me this president, you could talk to this president that way? I don't think so, Fred.
Well, he had no choice. It's called this thing called federal law. I mean, the Secret Service could literally drag him to the hospital if they feel. And this is in reaction to what President Kennedy did. This is one of the first laws they passed about of this when he had the bubble removed from the limousine before he was assassinated. When the Congress reconvened in January of '64, one of the things they did is take possession of the person of the president. In other words, the Secret Service is in charge of his safety, and they're the final say. So he can't be anywhere they feel he is not safe. And if he is sick and they feel he needs to be at the hospital, he cannot order the Secret Service to not take him to the hospital. You get my meaning? They are controlled. Now, he's the president. The commander-in-chief, and he's got all the executive powers. But when it comes to his person, basically Congress took over that after the Kennedy assassination. So it's not that what Jeff said, I'm not disagreeing with Jeff. I'm just saying even Trump would have a hard time if the Secret Service judged that he was a threat or that there was a threat to him. They felt it was in his best interest to be at Walter Reed or whatever. He would have been there in a heartbeat, and there's nothing he could have done about it.
Okay.
We would have seen the news articles of them dragging him into Walter Reed. And the only reason I say that is there's a great story about George Bush one time. I won't get into all the details, but basically he got sick, and they dragged the first George Bush. They dragged him to Walter Reed against his will, and he wrote about it in his book. I don't think he ever forgave the Secret Service for it because he was the president. But that's the law. So
okay.
that's why it's not that. Trump is the type of guy who wouldn't care. I agree with you guys. If it was left up to him, oh my God, I think he would have gone there just so he could say he infected Biden. He's that type of guy. But I just don't think the Secret Service would allow it.
Well, like I said, it's just the way the thing was laying out. I'm just looking at my observation. I looked at this thing, and all I'm saying is that when they first came out was the whole idea him and his wife had tested positive, and at the same time they made the statement that he was okay, no problem. He got better. And then after he got through with the debate, then they brought up the other issues about the fact that it could be serious. He could have been taken care of at the Capitol if he was just giving him a pill or something like that, an injection or whatever.
There's a very good chance that he had it when he was on the podium.
Yeah.
I mean, there it is. I didn't know when he was tested.
So. That's what I saw.
But there's a very good chance when we were looking at him in that debate, he had the virus.
Mm-hmm.
But
you understand what I'm saying?
Know.
But
I agree.
Yes, I'm just, and so I'm just saying that was a toughie. I just thought we needed to
And we're
comment
dealing
on
with
this.
a guy we know has got the character to do exactly what you're thinking.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's not like it's outside of the realm of thinking.
Right. Okay, so he's pretty well dedicated to to staying in that seat and doing his job. You know what I mean?
I can hear Bruce. I can hear Trump going, if I give him COVID, maybe he'll die before Election Day. Maybe he'll go like Herman Cain. I mean, really. I mean, he's that type of guy, I think, that would pull that.
Yeah, I never thought about Herman.
I mean?
Yep,
He'll
Herman.
already say, I'm going to stand as close as I can to Biden. He's that type of guy, I feel. That's just my opinion. I have no evidence to back that up, but I just think if he knew he had COVID, he would have gone come hell or high water, period.
Right.
I just don't think the Secret Service knew. That's all.
Hey, let me throw another guy on the table here for us guys to talk about. And boy, I tell you, let's come back home to Portland, Oregon. In that debate when the president mentioned Mike Reese's, either the sheriff department, they all supported me for president as president. He quoted Mike Reese's name. And, Trump is not the kind of guy that would drop a name in that kind of environment. We're not having that person talking to that person on the phone. Now, this is just my opinion. I think there was a conversation between Mike.
Oh, there definitely was a conversation. Are you kidding me? And Mike Reese, he's got all the church ladies. He is now the poster boy for all the church ladies around the country.
Yes.
I mean, he's probably got church ladies across the country sending him love letters right now. Oh, yeah. No, he's living the luck of the Irish for sure.
Yeah, but you know what? I don't think it's going to be lost. Don't get me wrong. He's sitting in an elected position. You see, I mean, he's an elected official aspect of it. And Mike is not. He wasn't thinking about doing one term. I think he's looking at. He's got other futures involved. Whether it be a congressional seat or whether it be a senatorial seat or something. Mike's going to stay into the ruckus aspect of it. And right in front of him, he's got some pretty good former Portland police officer and just setting this. And when you start thinking about the protesting this past weekend, I think he was the chairman of the board at that particular meeting.
Bruce, Mike is
very articulate.
It's going to be at least 10 years, if not longer, before a cop could run for anything in Portland and get anywhere. Every police officer we've ever had on city council, and we've had several, they were all failures. All of them. Every single one. And then you look at what's going on today. With what's today? Oh, yeah, no. If you were in law enforcement, you're 10 years at least away before you could possibly effectively run for office and win in the city. Unless the person you're running against is you'd have to find somebody really bad to run against. I mean, somebody that everybody hates less, even more than cops. Maybe a tax collector, child molester or something. Somebody really bad.
Okay, let's get Jack involved. What do you think, Jack? You think? What about Mike Reese? What do you think? What's your opinion?
Well, I think Mike Reese. I know from what I've read in the newspaper is that Mike Reese has come out and said he has not endorsed President Trump, although it is a stated fact that the National Police Union, has actually come out and endorsed President Trump for the upcoming 2020 election. So I don't know who to believe. If Mike Reese has political aspirations, I think it would be very difficult for him to stand up and say, I endorse President Trump, and that not come back to undermine his ambitions to run for office.
It would destroy him. It would destroy him.
Indeed.
Oh my God.
Well, guys, remember now, he is an elected official. He got elected. And so my point is, as an individual, a lot of folks right up front with you would ask them, well, who would you vote for here in Portland, Oregon? They say, no way I'd vote for Trump. And guess what? They vote for him. They'd support him big time. And so I'm not taking anything from Mike. I'm just saying he had the floor. I mean, here was an opportunity to make a point. He had enough time to move and run somewhere else in a red state.
Go ahead.
I think he did a quick sidestep right there when he was asked that question point blank.
Yeah.
I think he took, whether it's the truth or not, I have no idea. You know him better than I do, but I think he took a politically astute sidestep.
Okay, Fred, what do you think they're going to forget about? What about the media locally when he's ready to run again? What do you think, Fred?
They'll forget about it. If it comes up the way he handled it, it'll come up as a plus.
Really?
You know, oh yeah, he came out publicly immediately that night. He tweeted while the debate was going on that he did not support Trump and never would, and that was while the debate was still going on. So no, it's never going to hurt him. He reacted the right way. It really
Fred.
depends on how he treats the church ladies that are chasing him. Now,
But-
you know, if he offends the right church lady, like you know, one of these big preachers' daughters or one of these big preachers' sisters, then I don't know. Things might go south for him. But if he stays the gentlemanly type that he is and keeps doing his job like he does, no, this won't hurt him at all. It's going to actually help him.
Okay. Like I said, the only thing that sticks on the wall with a number of people, including me, is that Trump is not the kind of guy that's going to mention your name personally on national TV at a debate. I mean, that's the thing that gets me. He knew his name. He didn't say, well, Sheriff Reese. He said Mike Reese. You know, that's a personal hit. I mean, you know, he's golfing. You know, he's had several talks to this guy because he's been trying to federalize the troops there in the Portland metropolitan area for days. But he also knew that he was a former chief of police of the police street. And the new chief that we have now, in all due respect, he's O.J. King. He's still trying to get his handles together. What do you think, Fred?
Bruce, this is politics. It's not that I disagree with you. I think you're probably, right about everything, but that you got to look at how Reese handled it. You know, like you guys have heard me say before, half of everything we see in politics is make-believe.
Yeah.
It's rhetoric, it's BS, it doesn't exist. You know what I mean? And, Mike very well. Mike may have even told Trump that he's thinking about endorsing him. He's thinking, hey, Mr. President, I'm thinking about standing up. And he didn't say he endorsed him, just said, I'm thinking about it. And then, the president takes it as, hey, he's going to endorse me.
Yeah.
And then Mike comes out and says, oh, no, I never did it. They never would. I mean, so, he's playing both sides.
Yep.
He's pulling a Cary Grant. Yes, I live with Randolph Scott. We sleep in the same bedroom, but I'm not gay. You know what I mean? He's doing both sides. He's swinging both ways. And that's all we saw, and that's fine. I mean, how Mike reacted is going to play well on the close-in East Side neighborhoods. He would have to win if he's going to go anywhere in this town.
Okay.
It's going to play very well. Our local communist folks, God love them. You know what I mean? They really are going to be inspired by the way he handled the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
When he was police chief, there was not many conflicts, if you will, during that particular time when he was sitting in that seat. Do you think it's time now that the city, and we as a city, should look at the possibility of consolidating both the county and the city together?
No, there was no conflict because everybody who caused any issues, Randy Leonard got rid of. I mean, Randy just got rid of him. You got in the way of their agenda. The media didn't talk about you. The reporters weren't going to talk about you, or Randy might knock on your door. You know what I'm talking about? Bad things happen to people that pissed off Randy.
Really?
That's why, Randy's having the life that he's having right now. It's not good. It's not good. But hey, that's how it was back then. And that's the old.
Oh my God. Was that the announcement you gave me? We're going to talk about that piece? Randy? We're going to talk about Randy? Oh my God.
Randy next show.
Oh my God. Gee, I was anticipating. I was anticipating that deal. I mean, Randy was a friend of mine. We fished together. You know what I mean? Wow. Okay, well, all right. Then I'll talk to Randy about that piece. But anyway, no problem. Okay. Hey, folks, we had quite a show. Yeah, guys, thanks very much. And I hope the viewing audience will also talk to their neighbors. Tell them to look at the show. Look at the show. Discuss the issue. We got a vote. Take care. Enjoy yourself. Be safe. Wear a mask.
All right.
Take care.